Listen to this podcast now on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Why is the middle class shrinking? Why are people facing an affordability crisis while marginalized individuals called informals grow in numbers? Join me as I travel the world, speaking with people living in invisibility, the leaders working to solve it, and uncovering the hard truths shaping our economy and daily reality.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform. The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Fundraising powerhouse Act Blue under the microscope again. A new report from the New York Times raising questions about whether its CEO misled Congress. And now the group could face investigations, midterms only months away. Connor Hansen's got more on this. What you find out from Washington. Connor, good morning.
Hi, Bill. Good morning. This could have major implications for Democrats heading into the midterms. One of Act Blue's own former lawyers reportedly suggested this could lead to a criminal investigation. Act Blue has facilitated billions in donations for Democrats, ranging from presidential nominees to local school board candidates. A report in the New York Times cited a 2023 letter from its CEO, Regina Wallace-Jones, to GOP investigators, claiming Act Blue used multi-layered screening to root out foreign donations, which are illegal under federal law. The problem? Act Blue's former lawyers told her some of those steps weren't always followed, and that presented a substantial risk if she was found to have misled Congress.
Started looking into it.
Welcome. I guess I'm here. I'm not here.
Had really pulled back on some of the security measures.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I can't hear anything back. Welcome to our Saturday morning extravaganza, which the host can't hear anything from. I am James Golden. If you want to be on the program this morning, 800-848-9222 is the number to call. 800-848-9222. Having a little technical difficulties as we begin, but that will not deter us. It is the Easter weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Hoping we might hear from Princess Diana today. I haven't spoken with the Princess, Her Highness, this week, and it's just been crazy busy. So, we've got a lot to discuss. There's a lot of activity concerning, as you heard at the top of the hour news, wherever you are, the events over in Iran. We had a fighter plane down, as you know. Another fighter plane crashed. We have things going on in Iran this morning with fighter planes going down. As you may, a fighter plane going down. One of the pilots has been rescued. The other, there's a tremendous search for. This has opened up a lot of discussion, of course, mocking in some cases from the leftist media, who has been totally opposed to this action, despite the benefits of it. Mocking, oh, well, I thought that their air defenses were totally crushed. Well, no, they still have missile capabilities. We're still at war. Also, there is a opinion piece in today's Washington Post that seems to take the side of the opposition from Kathleen Parker. NATO is refusing to help Trump with his Iran fiasco. Cue the tantrums. And this all breaks down to, of course, TDS. President Donald Trump's latest tantrums against NATO remind us that toddlers love repetition. Trump has threatened to pull out of the transatlantic alliance so many times it's become, well, a joke. He recently called American and European allies cowards for refusing to race to his command and seize the Strait of Hormuz. And it goes on from there. Meanwhile, gas prices keep climbing as market volatility increases. Secretary of State Colin Powell's words to George W. Bush before the U.S. invasion of Iraq haunt us once again. If you break it, you own it, she says. Now, one thing about Colin Powell's words to George Bush and all that, Colin Powell left Iraq before they were fully defeated, and we had to go back. And after 9/11, left their army standing, left them on the ground. So it is just an amazing thing that now you have people citing Colin Powell as if he is the authority, especially Kathleen Parker. The idea that somehow Europe, which will benefit greatly from the free flow of oil, United States, as Donald Trump has said over and over again, has oil. We have oil. We are energy independent. We don't need oil coming from the Mideast. So that is not what this is about. 3 NATO allies, Ms. Parker continues, have told Trump in so many words to take a flying leap. Italy denied landing rights for U.S. aircraft en route to the Middle East. The Italian Prime Minister called the war outside the scope of international law. Spain announced it was closing airspace to 2 military bases the U.S. operates. And you go on from there. So, what about our European allies? These are American bases. These are American bases they are denying airspace into. And this is a big deal. Donald Trump, cut 6, explains a position that should be taken quite seriously, despite the quote-unquote repetition.
Maybe in particular that country, we were the longest bond, the longest ally. Australia too. Australia was not great. They weren't there. So if there's ever a big one, which I hope there's not, but if there's ever a big one, I don't think they're going to be there. And that's not fair, and we have to remember that as a country. They weren't there. So what makes you think they'd be there if we needed them for something? We're always going to be there, or at least we were. I don't know about anymore, to be honest with you. I have to be honest. We were always there when they needed help. We always would have been there when they needed help.
Now, the idea that Europe, the French, Spain, Italy, all refusing to help the United States. We're not asking them for troops. We haven't asked them to send in troops. We've simply asked that American air bases we can take off and land and fly over their countries in order to make the shortest route to take care of a problem that has haunted the world and Europe, particularly Europe, for almost half a century. The idea that they will not help is almost unbelievable, but there's a reason for it. News Nation the other day had Leland Vittert on, expert, Cut 30, and I think he explains to a degree what is going on here. Matt, I need Cut 30, please. Leland Vittert. And this is what he had to say about why Europe is not helping.
I think there's something bigger happening, which is a realignment of the world, that the Brits have become, as have the French, as have the Spaniards, as have the Italians, all countries that have said they won't help, have become much more aligned, or I would say even hostage to their own domestic political interests, which focus on their Muslim populations. And you're seeing the Arab world now ally itself with Israel and the United States. Countries only have permanent interests, not permanent allies. Have the world's interests realigned?
Yes, and there is, of course, a train of thought that is what is behind the stance in Europe. It has been echoed in some ways, particularly over this Easter weekend, because King Charles, interestingly enough, decided, this is not the first time this has happened, so I don't want to read too much into it. King Charles has decided there's not going to be an Easter message. However, this year he did offer a message for Ramadan, and some people over in the UK are making a big deal about it. He issued a message at the close of Ramadan and at the Eid holiday, at the beginning of the Eid holiday, which is where the holy month of Ramadan ends. But no Easter message. And people in Europe, some people are furious. There's certainly a lot going on. And for Kathleen Parker, Washington Post to just reduce this to another TDS Trump is acting like a toddler. No, this is about United States interests. This is about, folks, we could have raised the same argument in World War I and World War II when Europe was under attack. Even after the attack at Pearl Harbor, we could have just said, oh, Japan attacked us. We're going to take care of Japan. By the way, what's happening in Europe is your problem, Europe. We did not do that. NATO was formed. The New York Times, by the way, got it wrong the other day in their headline. They called it the North American Treaty Organization, when in fact it's the North Atlantic. The New York Times did that. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization. NATO was formed, a joint alliance between Europe and the United States, to help secure not only freedom but defenses for Europe, more so than for America. And for Europe to stand down in this is totally disgraceful. Trump has it right on NATO. The history of NATO, not paying their bills, not funding their own defense, relying on the United States. This problem that is going on in Iran has been in the making for half a century. For Europe to stand down is inexcusable. Even if they don't agree that this was the time or the place for the mission, for them to deny the United States rights to just fly over their country from our own bases, it's inexcusable. And for the United States media to stand with this is also inexcusable.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. James Golden Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
James Golden, Snerdley with you here. I want to run through a few of, while we have some time, and folks, there is so much to discuss today besides this. Nancy Pelosi has been in the news. Basically, we have something new from Pelosi. It's called pre-election denial. We're not even at an election, denying that the election is going to be fair. But I want to go with a few of the other incidents. One of the things that Kathleen Parker discussed is that we don't have a plan. This is all it's just made up by Trump. And this is something you hear from the left. Marco Rubio addressed that. Why we are doing what we are doing in Iran. Cut 11 earlier this week from Marco Rubio.
Many Americans are asking, why did the United States have to attack Iran now? Well, let me explain. Iran wants to have nuclear weapons. Of that, there is zero doubt. If what they truly wanted, which is what they claim, is nuclear energy, well, they could have nuclear energy like all the other countries in the world have it. And that is, you import the fuel and you build reactors above ground. That's not what Iran has done. They build their reactors and their facilities deep in mountains, away from the public glare. And they want to enrich that material. The same equipment that they could use to enrich material for energy, they could use to quickly enrich it to weapons grade. So it is clear that they've been offered every opportunity to have a nuclear program that allows them to have energy, not weapons. And every single time they have turned it down. But why the attack now? Well, what was Iran trying to do? Iran was trying to build a conventional shield, in essence, have so many missiles, have so many drones that no one could attack them, and they were well on their way. We were on the verge of an Iran that had so many missiles and so many drones that no one could do anything about their nuclear weapons program in the future. That was an intolerable risk. Under no circumstances can a country run by radical Shia clerics with an apocalyptic vision of the future ever possess nuclear weapons. And under no circumstances can they be allowed to hide and protect that program and their ambitions behind a shield of missiles and drones that no one can do anything about. This was our last best chance to eliminate that conventional threat, that conventional shield that they were trying to build, and the president made the right decision to wipe it out now. That is the goal of this operation, to destroy their conventional missiles and their drone program so they can't hide behind it and finally have to deal with the world seriously about never, ever having nuclear weapons.
Now, Marco Rubio also was on Fox News this week and dealing with the situation with NATO. This is cut 10. Marco Rubio also asked the question that we all need to be asking right now.
The NATO is simply about us having troops in Europe to defend Europe, but when we need their help, not their help, we're not asking them to conduct airstrikes. When we need them to allow us to use their military bases, their answer is no. Then why are we in NATO? You have to ask that question. Why do we have billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, over the years, trillions of dollars, and all these American forces stationed in the region? If we can only use, in our time of need, we're not going to be allowed to use those bases. So I think there's no doubt, unfortunately, after this conflict is concluded, we are going to have to re-examine that relationship.
Now, my friends, even with all of the seriousness of the issue, there's always a point for levity. I think one of the best sound bites of the week that I heard, when we played it during the week, but I'm going to play it again, came from a man on the street interview. I don't even know who the internet journalist was, but it was at the No Kings rally, I believe. And he's asking a liberal woman about Iran, the Strait of Hormuz. Cut 17. This is how that interview went.
Isn't it a little bit homophobic that we're so focused on the Straits of Hormuz and not the Gates of Hormuz?
Yes, I agree. Yes, for sure.
Why do you think they're willing to leave the Gates of Hormuz behind?
I think it's just historically, gays have always been very discriminated against, which is wrong on so many levels.
Even in war.
Yeah, even in war. It just takes more reform in government, obviously, and then also educating society.
I just feel like if we're going to go in there, we can't leave the gay people behind. I don't think we should go in there at all, but if we're going to the Gates of Hormuz, we could turn it into Fire Island.
For sure.
Yes, my friends, the Straits of Hormuz. And she was serious, by the way, in case any of you think that was prank. No, it wasn't a prank.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Okay. Want to get back to some of this business in going on with Iran. French President, Donald Trump. They're not Donald Trump. Donald Trump. The other day, Donald Trump talked about Macron and caused outrage in France, because in expressing his displeasure with Macron, he talked about the infamous scene at the airport when Macron's wife was seen slapping him in the face. And Donald Trump brought it up. The whole diplomatic community is outraged that Donald Trump would bring up such a thing. But cut 33, French President Macron, and this is what Macron has to say about the efforts in Iran.
Iran is a very bad regime. No discussion about that. I disagree with them on a lot of topics. But I don't believe that we will fix the situation just by bombings or by military operations. Look at what happened with this type of operation in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya. We never delivered. Never. Even after 20 years. So you have to respect the sovereignty of people. If people want to change a regime, they want to react, step up, they can do so.
They can do so. They can do so. If they want to react, they can do so. Iran is a very bad regime, but we're not going to do anything. No, not. My wife will slap me again. then we're not going to do anything to help. Now, General Keane, Jack Keane, was on Fox News, and he reacted to Cut 34, Matt. He reacted to what we're hearing from the U.S. allies that apparently people like Kathleen Parker over at the Washington Post are okay with.
What I find offensive is that Austria, Italy, some limitations in France, and the UK, slow to come around, are saying you can't use the bases that we finance in order to launch this operation. Do you find that disappointing?
Disappointing? That's not strong enough. It's outrageous. I mean, here we are doing something that's in our national interest, in the interest of allies in the region, to be sure, but in the world's interest. I mean, the world economy depends on a distribution of oil out of the Middle East. Everybody knows that. So the benefit that comes from pushing back the number one predator for almost 5 decades, Iran, and taking away their capability, everybody benefits from that. And the fact that they take such a narrow view of this, I mean, the president has a right to be furious over the fact that France will not let us fly over their airspace, that Italy and Germany and Spain are not letting us. Yeah.
It's outrageous.
These are bases there. These are U.S. bases and not letting us use our own U.S. bases to support the war. What are they thinking?
Yeah, they're thinking TDS, as is the mainstream press in this country. Folks, they're anxious to see Donald Trump fail, regardless of what it takes. If it means Iran surviving, a nuclear Iran threatening the world rather than have Donald Trump succeed, that's what they want. If it means the state sponsor of terrorism will be allowed to commit terror indefinitely, that's what they want, as long as Trump doesn't succeed. None of these people complained when Obama sent $1 billion in cash on pallets on a secret flight in the middle of the night to Iran. Not one of them complained. These same voices out complaining now, none of them complained. But they complain. Donald Trump is wrong to actually question NATO when NATO is doing their best to see to it that the number one state sponsor of terror continues to exist because they have TDS. And they've been mad at Donald Trump ever since the first term, when Donald Trump demanded that they actually stop leaning on America and not paying the 2% that they were expected to pay of their GDP to support their own defenses and instead put that money in NATO. They have been angry ever since. These welfare states of Western Europe, which are all falling to pieces, many of them, not all, but most of them, because of open borders, immigration, are ticked off that Donald Trump has actually demanded that they share in their own defense, that they pay some of the cost of their own defense, instead of what has happened ever since the end of World War II. Ever since the end of World War II, Europe has built, Western Europe, incredible welfare states because the United States taxpayer were taking care of their defense needs. And Donald Trump has put a stop to it. It is insane, this level of animosity and this is not just Trump. That's who they're leveling the attacks at. But this is against the United States of America. That's where these attacks from Europe are coming from. They're putting up a middle finger to America. They don't need us right now, they think. Now, one of the things that General Jack Keane talked about was the free flow of oil. This is something that Rush used to talk about all the time. And people hate it on the left. In fact, you can see them chanting at their rallies. No war for oil. No war for oil. No war for, as they get on buses fueled by oil, as they go to their houses heated by oil, as they wear glasses and use all sorts of accessories that all of us use every day without thinking that oil has something to do with almost every product that human beings use in the modern world, whether it's the manufacture of them or whether it's oil is key. Oil is called it is the true economic engine of Western civilization. It is not solar energy. It's not any other forms of energy. And I am not opposed to other forms of energy. But right now, what fuels the world's economy, the entire economy of this world, in terms of our transportation, our manufacturing, our goods, is oil. And so this idea that the Strait of Hormuz is not important enough for Europe to step in is ridiculous. What's left of the European civilization, Western civilization, would fall completely apart without energy sources. They ought to be thanking us, just like they should have been thanking us in the decades after World War II, but they didn't. You talk about international ingrates with a superiority complex. That's what Western Europe is. Their civilizations are falling apart. Literally. They are falling apart. The UK is not what it was. France, if left to their own devices, couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag anymore. Spain, if attacked by a major force, would fall in a day. So would Portugal, even though they're not hostile to us. Europe, Italy would definitely fall. Germany, the Germans managed the Germans put up a fight. They still have some engineers over there that are pretty primo. But overall, Europe would fall. And instead of any kind of gratitude for what the United States has done, is doing, all we get is animosity. And our own press here, instead of supporting this nation when we're trying to correct one of the biggest mistakes of the 20th century, letting Iran rise to threaten the world, possibly with nuclear capability. Our press here decides that they want to stand with Europe with their TDS on full display, because that is what this is all about. This is not about policy. This is not about strategy. This is not about right and wrong. This is not about defending national interests. This entire response is about TDS.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're going to try the phones. Ruth in Long Island. James Golden, you're on Saturday Extravaganza. Good morning, Ruth. How are you?
Good morning, James Golden, Bo Snerdley, my favorite talk show host.
Thank you so much. Ruth, what are you thinking this morning?
Yes. Why don't we just give Europe to Russia before Great Britain is overrun and their nukes are taken away and we have a nuclear problem there?
Why don't we just give up to Russia?
Yeah, I think that they would oversee what's happening in Europe better than what's happening in Europe. And I know there's been some.
Let Russia have their way with Europe. Just Russia, you take it over. You deal with Europe's security. It's all yours.
I tell you, we don't need anything at all from Europe, from what I'm seeing now, on the research that I've done. And the dangers of a radical Islamic regime taking over Great Britain or any country that has nukes is really should be a concern.
Well, Interesting that, Ruth. I'm going to float that idea out there and see what other people think. Why are we doing this? Let Russia just have Europe. Let them just take Europe. They've had their designs on Europe. Where does China fall in the mix with all this, by the way? Because China wants to be incursion around the world, too. China and Russia are trying to surround the United States and with influence, both of them. And they're doing it in coordination with each other.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, Russia, to me, I don't think they're a threat as much as China is to us.
Aha. And I would agree with that. Ruth, I'm going to ponder that. I love hearing from you. Thank you for the call. So appreciate it. I want to grab a few other people here. Thank you so much, Ruth. Silas is calling from Staten Island. Silas, we got about a minute before we got to shove off here, but I wanted to get you in real quick.
Okay. Yeah, you can float that.
Go ahead.
They're going to take, Russia's going to take them anyway. Remember,
Russia's going to take who anyway?
Europe.
Oh, Russia's going to take Europe anyway.
Yeah, you nailed it when you said they're like ungrateful children. If any nation should be grateful to any nation, it should be to America. We've helped everybody. And they're like ungrateful children born of a rich parent, and they think it's owed to them. No. And you see how when Ukraine gave up its nukes, well, look what happened. Look how Russia goes back on its word.
Well, by the way, since you mentioned that, Bill Clinton talked Ukraine into giving up their nukes. And you know what we promised? You know what we promised the United States? We promised that if Russia ever attacked them, pretty much, that we would be there for them. And they gave up their nukes. And you know what happened to the Ukraine? In my view, they got hosed. Now, I'm not saying that they're right, Russia's wrong, and all the stuff that they were doing, because I also understand why Russia was upset. The idea when all the talk was floated that Ukraine would join NATO. I mean, that would be if we lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis. We know how upset the United States was when Russia threatened to put nuclear weapons 90 miles away from our borders. So this idea that we would just say, okay, if Ukraine joins NATO, Russia should be fine with it. No, they weren't fine with it. Of course they weren't going to be fine with it. But I don't want to get deterred here. The idea from what you're saying is, right now, I think vital. Europe is, to me, in a downward spiral. And until they do something to correct, they are going to continue their downward spiral. They don't seem to want a way out. But they are being incredibly ungrateful to the United States of America. And enough of this whole, it's Trump, his personality, the things he says. Look, the personality only goes so far. What is in the national interest of the country, regardless of the personality of the leaders? I could care about the personality of the leaders, any of them. What is in the national interest? What is in the international interest? And for the entire it seems almost the entire NATO alliance not to understand the threat that Iran posed not only to them, but to the world, is unconscionable.
Nation with any sense would worry about defending itself, regardless of who's running another nation. Any nation that doesn't want to improve and protect itself has got a lousy leader, period.
That's exactly right. Well, my friends, look, we are at the end of hour number uno. A tumultuous hour indeed. But we'll be back with our number duo. And later on in our number duo, Dr. Peter Michalos will join us, America's doctor. We're going to talk some healthcare stuff that I've been asking him about for the last 2 weeks. A little bit later in the show, Princess Diana will be with us and your phone calls. If you're on hold, please stay on hold. 800-848-9222 is the number to reach us. The Saturday morning extravaganza, your Saturday morning vibe is here. Our number uno in the can, our number duo coming up.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. James Golden Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, my friends. Our number duo is here on our Saturday morning extravaganza. It is Easter weekend. You have the Saturday morning vibe here. 800-848-9222 is how you reach us. Those of you on hold, please be a little bit more patient. I'm going to grab some of your calls as quickly as we can. Coming up a little bit later, Dr. Peter Michalos will join us. And America's doctor. We're going to talk about some of the things that are happening in the world of healthcare insurance. They're not pleasant. I maintain that healthcare and the lack of healthcare are still some of the biggest issues in America. And we are nowhere near fixing the problems. In fact, in some cases, for some people, they are getting worse. Also, this hour, I want to briefly talk about what happened in New York over the week. It's horrific. In case you haven't or you're not aware of it, in New York City this week, in the Brooklyn area, for those of you in New York, you know it, a 7-month-old baby was killed by a quote-unquote stray bullet. You had two, I guess it is safe to say now with reporting, gangbangers that were on a scooter. One of them, the alleged gunman, Amori Green, taking a shot over his shoulder, kind of like what you see in movies. And the bullet from this entered the head of a 7-month-old baby. Also injured her brother. He doesn't get the brother injured, but is still alive, not the focus of a lot of media attention. It turns out that there's a possibility there was a targeted hit toward the father, who is apparently somehow, they believe, might have links to a gang called MOE, associated with housing projects in New York, government housing, the Marcy houses in New York. After they shot, the shots were fired, one of which killed a 7-month-old girl. They crashed their motorbike. They tried to get away. The alleged shooter suffered a broken leg trying to make a getaway. He's in the hospital, was arranged from this hospital. The other one has been tracked down and arrested. The driver, Matthew Rodriguez, 18 years old, tracked down and arrested in Pennsylvania. The alleged shooter, Green, was charged with murder, attempted murder, assault. He's issued a not guilty plea during his arraignment. He addresses the judge as boss. Hey, boss. The charges against Rodriguez have not been filed yet, at least as of last night. This is all part of a culture, folks, that is not addressed. One of the reasons it's not addressed is because if you rage too much about it, you get accused of racism. Unless you're on the left. The left talks about mass incarceration, and they made that a big deal. Oh, so many black men are in jail. It's mass incarceration. It's part of a white supremacist system. So we hear about it from that end. But we don't hear about this underlying culture that exists in almost any blue city around the United States, especially a predominant where you have a lot of African American young men, because you shouldn't talk about that. Now, people on social media talk about it all the time. It's not just the young men they talk about. There's it's black fatigue, and you see it talked about on social media, where people are expressing this whole black fatigue thing. I remember when Princess Diana brought it to my attention. Was supposed to be black people raging about how they're tired of the system and all the racism, but it was quickly taken over by people who use the term black fatigue to describe their unhappiness with a culture that seems to pop up everywhere. It pops up when we talk about these let's just be frank. It pops up when you look at spring break stories and you see thousands of black kids somewhere and you see all the arrests that happen and you see all of the mayhem. White kids go on spring break too. Yes, I know. White kids are criminals too. Yes, I know. I know. But I'm talking about a culture. A culture that was supposedly there was some awareness to after the killing of George Floyd, when we were told that Black Lives Matter. Well, they don't. In many cases, they don't, from the criminals within that subset of the population. Black lives don't matter a bit. Not even a 7-month-old baby's life matters. These people, these evil people, will take a shot at anybody, regardless of how stupid it is to shoot into a crowd, because they do. Because they can. And as I said, it's a culture that is glorified. It's glorified in the music. It's glorified in, we had a term for it, gangsta rap. It's called the life. The game. And you saw it as far back as the 1980s. You look at what was happening with The Wire, that show on HBO that talked about what life was like in Baltimore. Well, that culture still exists, and it's grown. And it's in almost every single major area where black people are in America. And it is a generational thing now that is spread to 2, 3, maybe even more generations. It started in earnest when I was coming up. You had movies glorifying this stuff like The Mac, and I went to see it. Superfly, where all of a sudden whether it's drug dealers or whether it's some other criminal activity, black gangs or whatever, it's glorified. And it exists throughout America. Is it all based on race? No. If you go across the pond in the UK, for a long time, I don't know whether this is still exists because of the population shifts over there, you saw white gangbangers with the same behavior, the same attitudes. If you go in Asia, you see Asian gangbangers, same thing. It's a cultural mindset that it's cool to be a criminal. It's cool to be a gangster. It's cool to be a thug. But in America, we see it most often, and there is a disproportionate amount of young blacks involved in the life. Well, what are the numbers? I don't know the exact numbers, and I don't have to know the exact numbers. We see it. We see the crash and grabs where they crash into a store. We see the social media, let's all get together and rob somewhere, whether it's a convenience store or whether it's a gas station, whether it's a high-end jewelry store. And we see the people that are doing it. And we're all supposed to just close our eyes and pretend it doesn't exist, because if we do acknowledge it, well, you're racist, you're only picking on the black. No, folks. This is part of a culture that needs to be stopped. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be put in the open. And it needs to be stopped. The same people that told us Black Lives Matter are silent. Just as they were silent when this week, the guy that actually broke the story of Planned Parenthood selling human baby parts. Many of you don't even know where that story, unless you follow it, happened. An expose from inside Planned Parenthood with some of their executives laughing, making jokes while they were dismembering human baby embryos. Now, they happen to be mostly black babies. The guy that broke the story, Kamala Harris had him put up on charges when she was in California as the AG. It is taking that time to this time that those bogus charges against him were finally dropped this week. There should have been outrage over this. There's none. But that is part of it. It starts with the lives of black babies who are dismembered and their little bodies sold off for by Planned Parenthood. And it goes all the way to a 7-month-old baby who had uttered her first words, mama, being killed in New York. Now, this one, for a change, is the alleged murder is being held without bail. There's story after stories of horrific crimes where these liberal judges just let them walk, because that's also the continuation of this cultural phenomena that is destroying Americans' cities. It is astounding. There was outrage this week in New York when this happened. That outrage is going to subside. And unless something is done to really address the underlying problem, which is a cultural problem, it is a moral problem, it is a cultural problem. It is a severe moral problem that you have an entire culture, subculture, that has been allowed to flourish and grow, that glorifies this gangster, this street life, that this is acceptable for any community. Until the underlying problem of the culture is solved, we're going to continue to see these horror stories unfold in city after city after city in America. And I guarantee you the left is never going to have the courage to address it. And it's time for people that are not in the left to start raising the issue. And you're going to be called all kind of names for raising it. But so what? It is time to stop this madness that has been going on now for over 30, 40 years, where this culture, this gang-banging, gangster, everything is cool, let's be part of the life, let's be illiterate, let's have our music spread this illiteracy and spread all this evil. It's time to call it out for what it is. It is despicable. It is immoral. It is horrendous. It is costing lives. It is costing the security and safety of entire communities here. And it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be stopped.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. James Golden Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're going to head back to the telephones. People have been waiting. Adam is calling in from Long Island, New York. Good morning, Adam. How are you? Welcome.
Good morning, sir. How you doing today?
Oh, that's the tumultuous day, but I'm doing fine.
Right. Okay. I'm just checking in with you. You know, I'm listening to everything you say. I'm listening to everything from when you started at 7. You know,
Mm-hmm.
just, you know.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Are you happy to see that are you happy that the Iran situation is being addressed, or do you think it's a mistake?
I got mixed feelings about this, bro. But let me just say this. Iran, it seems like they fighting back. They're not losing. They're getting obliterated, whatever you want to call it. But Israel look like Gaza now. It look just like Gaza, big parking lot.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
You think that they have decimated Israel? Really?
Yeah, them bombs is landing in Israel, man. You know.
Well, number one, despite the efforts, of the mainstream press to portray it that way, Iran is not being very successful. Now, I'm not saying that they were a pushover, but I mean, if you consider what has happened in a month to them versus what has happened, no, they are not. Iran is not putting up a horrific fight. They're putting up a fight. They're not gone. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed for a lot of shipping, but they're not winning this conflict, and there's no way they can win this conflict.
Well, I wish the United States would let them fight their own battle, Israel. Let them fight their own battle.
They are.
It'd be different. No, they're not. United States.
We are fighting a battle that is an American battle. Do you know that Iran has been in a Cold War with the United States for 47 years, and no other president up until now has had the political will to say, okay, enough of this. And the idea that they were that close to having nuclear weapons and they were working on their ballistic capability to send them overseas. Come on. This is our cause as well.
All right. I'm just, I need an email from you because I got to send you stuff, man, that I see, man. Like, you go to, if you're a Christian, you go to Israel.
Adam, I'll tell you what, yeah. I'm going to make an exception here. I don't usually give an email, but Adam, I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to get your email, and I'm going to figure out a way to communicate so that you can send me stuff. I like that because I want to see it. All right? Okay, folks, if you're on hold, please be patient. We may have to get some numbers for you and call you back if it goes too far because we got a lot to do. Dr. Peter Michalos is going to join us when we get back. And I expect that's going to be a discussion because healthcare is a big deal. And I started 2 or 3 weeks ago asking the good doctor questions about people being thrown off of Medicare Advantage and other things. We are coming back with America's Doctor, and we have more of your calls on. So stay where you are. The Saturday morning extravaganza continues.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
America's Doctor, Dr. Peter Michalos is with us. Good morning. Now, I sent you 3 stories, Doctor, that I want to talk about, but I also want to talk about the fact that you have a book coming out. When is it due? What's the title? What's your book about, Dr. Michalos?
Well, the book that I'm co-authoring with Dr. Magdalena Swarczewski is called The Death of Aging, and basically in 1997, when my mother passed away of cancer, I got very interested in how come some people are dying much younger, and then my relatives who were living, for example, back in Greece, were living to be 100. And I got interested in anti-aging and wrote a booklet called Die Young at a Golden Age. And then that now recently, with all the interest in anti-aging, we summarized all the anti-aging literature around the world to basically try to help people not have just longevity, but it's about health span and the things that we can do and the fascinating science behind trying to live longer and healthier. But and to get more information, they can follow it on X. It's at Death of Aging, and hopefully it'll be released by the first week of May. But first of all, before I say anything else, I just want to say what an honor it is to be on your show, because I consider you America's teacher, because you educate people on facts, current events, with compassion, fairness, and really good humor, and, of course, great music all the time. So I just want to, get that out of the way to...
wow, thank you so much. And let's talk about what people are experiencing, Doctor. And by the way, I can't wait. We're going to do a podcast, you and I, on this book, so that we can talk about it in depth and make that available for people, too, okay? We're going to do that. Yeah, we'll schedule that so that we can talk about anti-aging and the death of aging. Now, let's talk about insurance. Let me give a caveat first. Just give me 1 second, Doctor. If you are younger, I understand that most of the time when you start hearing people talk about Medicare, Medicaid, all this stuff, your eyes glaze over. Yeah. Like, here these people these old people talking about, look, you're going to be old sooner than you think you are. And all of a sudden, these things are going to matter to you. They may not now, but they will. That I promise you. So with that disclaimer for the younger members of our audience, just be patient. You'll be there, and you'll understand everything we're talking about sooner than you think.
We have to start by defining them both, because a lot of people don't even know the difference, and I even see politicians constantly confusing the two. So I want to make it very clear. Medicare is a federal insurance program that covers 80% of people's medical expenses for people 65 and up and disabled people, regardless of their income. So it covers hospital and Medicare costs. But they make it sound like it's an entitlement program, but it's actually not. From the day you get your first job when you're 16 years old, and again, referencing to what you just said about the young people, you're paying 2.9% of every paycheck. So let's say your first job, you're making $100,000 a year. You're paying into Medicare $2,900 a year into the Medicare program. So the government has been collecting all this money. And if you make over $200,000 a year, add an extra 0.9% to that. And if you're self-employed, you pay that 2.9% yourself. So you've been paying into Medicare, but they try to make it sound like, oh no, we're just taking it out of taxes. No, we've been paying in it since our first job. So that's number one. And there's Part A, which is the hospital part, which in addition, we have to pay from, for example, our Social Security check, another $200 a month. Then you have to pay for Part B, which can be another $200 plus a month. And then there's also a prescription portion, Part D, which is another $100 a month. So for the average person, you're paying $5,000 a year, and a couple is paying about $10,000 a year just to be on Medicare, and versus Medicaid, which is basically a joint federal state program for low-income individuals with little or no costs out of pocket to individuals, and that's based on income. And that also covers like long-term care insurance, which the rest of us don't have with regular Medicare. It even covers vision and dental. So the problems are they came up with something back in 2003, and they call it Medicare Advantage Plan. So traditional Medicare is not-for-profit. You're dealing directly with the government. These Advantage plans, or what I sometimes refer to and others refer to as disadvantage plans, are as the insurance companies, they contract with Medicare for a fixed amount of money. And the only way you can make a profit is that you have to limit or deny or restrict care. And the issues are that many doctors and hospitals don't take it. There's limited doctor networks and hospitals that are in it, and they restrict which hospitals you can go to. And you also require pre-authorization that delays care. So you have to get a pre-authorization to get a CAT scan or an MRI, and there's a lot of unexpected out-of-pocket expenses and deductible that they don't tell you about. Just for an example, the Premier Cancer Center, for example, in the New York area, Memorial Sloan Kettering, they don't take the majority of Medicare Advantage plans. And then you have all the snowbirds, for example, in Florida who sign up for these Medicare Advantage plans, and then they come to New York and they get sick, or they go to another state, or seniors who travel a lot, and most doctors and many hospitals won't accept these Medicare Advantage plans. So that's the first problem, is defining it and understanding, what the differences are. And, prior authorization in an office, if they deny an MRI, a CAT scan, and for the office, which people don't realize, doctors' offices only make about 20 cents on every dollar after they pay all their staff, malpractice insurance. So it's basically, when you have to do these pre-authorizations, the doctor has to pay somebody to do all that. They can be on the phone for an hour with the insurance company, and that's a form of what I call theft of services. And there's multiple layers of uncompensated administrative burdens for doctors' offices, and you have to spend staff hours and money to pay for all these things to happen. That's why doctors hate Medicare Advantage, because they pay less and less every year. So that's the premise of what happens. And in reference to the articles that you spoke about, basically, there's 60 million people on Medicare in the United States, and all of a sudden, in certain communities, this past year, a lot of insurance companies, if they decide that they look at their numbers and they're not making profits, they drop 3 million people. And I'm 65 and I have a Medicare prescription plan. I was one of the people dropped too on my Medicare prescription plan, and I had to go and start searching for another plan.
You're a doctor, and they even dropping the doctors. It's amazing.
It doesn't matter. Whoever you are, you can get dropped. And then you have all these rules. Once you sign up for one of these Medicare Advantage plans, they lock you in. You can't even get out of it. There's only certain windows you have. The window you have to get out of it and opt out and go back to traditional Medicare is like January 1st to April 1st. And then our usual period to sign up for regular Medicare is October
November.
October 15th to December 7th is the usual time. So you have to really stay on top of this. So in addition to the fact that you've been paying for this since your first job into the system, plus you have to pay another $5,000 a month, and then you have to deal with these other issues.
A year.
So it's better.
$5,000 a year.
Right. It's better to stay in a regular, traditional Medicare where you deal directly with the government. Again, it's not an entitlement. You paid into it all these years, so you don't have someone else rationing your care, because that's the only way you make a profit. And the other article you sent me, where, for example, Kaiser, which is supposedly not for profit, made a $9 billion profit, but they got into trouble with the government and they had to pay out a large amounts of money because they were, restricting and limiting access to care, and that they were also upcoding, which basically means they add all these additional diagnoses to make the condition, for example, look worse so they can collect more. But meanwhile, they get about $1 billion a year in subsidies by calling themselves a 501c3 not-for-profit, and they don't pay real estate tax, and they don't pay federal tax on their income. So that's another thing. But meanwhile, the CEO, for example, of that company made $13 million last year, and their executives made collectively $200 million a year. So the problem is that
hold on, because we're rushing through that in a minute. I just want to really people understand this. Kaiser Permanente sets themselves up as some good guys. Oh, we're not for profit. Oh, we're not about profits here. They raked in $9 billion because they say they're not for profit. And because that's the way that they're registered with the government, they're not paying taxes. They're regarded as a charity. Yet you have the executives here, as you just recounted, clocking in over $200 some odd million salaries for a charity. Then they're involved in practices that some people consider to be questionable, and the government has considered questionable as well. They've had to pay fines. They say, well, the stuff we got caught, we wanted to avoid the cost of litigation. When is this scam going to be burst? And why is this scam this scam on Americans, and they deny coverage to people? How is this scam allowed to continue?
Well, there's a big issue with not-for-profits, and basically the way people do it is that they just have not-for-profits. Even some of these organizations for veterans, if you looked at the salaries and the way they make their profit is they basically hire their friends, their relatives, and they give them these major amounts of salaries. So they call it not-for-profit, but they're profiting in other ways through even, the wining, dining, the travel, the hotels, and they get paid in other ways. But again, this is not just our opinion. This was, Scott Lambert, the acting deputy inspector general, said that they were inflating diagnosing codes to boost profit, Kaiser, and they ended up having to pay $556 million just to settle that claim. So that's part of the problem. But, we need to have solutions, for example, in healthcare system. We need lawsuit reform, tort reform, because it's affecting access to care. Many communities don't have a neurosurgeon because it's $290,000 a year for insurance. So we need to have access to care, which is very important. And again, things like Medicare Advantage, if doctors aren't accepting it, and a lot of hospitals, so if I have cancer and I need a certain chemotherapy and they're not going to pay for it, what use is it to me? But people don't do their homework. Unfortunately, we get bombarded with commercials. One of them features a famous football player, quarterback. I don't want to mention any names, and they're telling you how great it is. The problem is once they lock you in, they make a profit by saying, no, you can't have this MRI. And I can't tell you how many cases I know of. For example, someone with severe headaches, and they were trying to deny the MRI. This person ended up having a brain tumor that was missed, or a subdural hematoma, a bleed in the brain. So a lot of them, by denying care, they're actually practicing medicine without a license. And the other problem with the Kaiser issue is that they're both the insurer and the provider. So there's a conflict of interest, and they've pitted hospitals and doctors against each other because the hospitals are trying to get the most of that healthcare dollar percentage, and then they're trying to take it away from the doctors, and the doctors obviously want more. And that's why all these hospitals have grouped together and formed these large networks. So now, for example, in New York, 3 or 4 hospitals come together, then they go to the insurance company and say, well, we represent 1 million people, so you have to give us a better rate. So there's this whole behind-the-scenes war going on capturing some of those healthcare dollars. But in the end, the patients are the ones who suffer by restricting access to care, limiting access to care. But, there are solutions that, we can talk about as well to try to improve things.
Okay, here's what I want to do, because I don't have time to do solutions right now. I don't know what your schedule is like next week. We laid out problems this week. Can you come back next week in the same time and let's talk about solutions?
Absolutely, because I want to be on the James Golden Show because you give people real actionable data and solutions to help improve their quality of life. And I'm grateful to be able to explain to people so they can understand, the terminology and what the difference between Medicare and Medicaid is. And again, I thank you very, very much for what you do.
Thank you. And so next week, folks, make a date. Next week, we're going to talk about solutions to some of these issues because this is important. You know what? And I'm going to just say in advance, and I don't know whether you will agree with me. If we are finally able to solve really solve the healthcare problem in the United States, our economy would take off even further than it is now. It would take off like a rocket in just this area alone if some of these problems are really solved and people get the care that they need.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to move from the sick care model to the prevention model because if people are healthier, they won't be using as much health care.
Love it. Dr. Michalos, thank you so much. We're going to check in next week. We're going to talk solutions.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And let's check in. Let's go down to Tennessee and check in with Harold, calling in from Tennessee this morning. Good morning, Harold. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Golden. I'm good. I woke up this morning.
I hear you. I hear you. Loud and clear.
Will the John Roberts Court go down in history as hip and fulfill the Nikita Khrushchev prophecy of "we will bury you with your own shovel"? I believe John Roberts is going to hip him. John Roberts, there were no 19th century slaves that crossed the border in the last 4 years.
You know, here's the thing. This birthright citizenship case that was at the court this week, of course this needs to be addressed. What Roberts said is, to me, interesting because and folks, Roberts came out pretty much, and all of them did, including the liberals. Jonathan Turley talked about this with a strict construction argument of this is what it says, this is what it says, this is what it says. I don't think conservatives want to be in the business of chiding justices for a strict interpretation of the Constitution. But I think that the birthright citizenship, the way it's being practiced, cannot stand. And I think our focus needs to come off the courts and into the legislature on this.
They're not going to do it.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem. So I'm kind of flummoxed. Go ahead.
I got a no king sign. No kings sign and no king's term limits for the Washington politicians. They're the one that's screwing over us. They're not doing the job. They're counting their money that they're raking in under the table.
Well, I agree with that to a degree. Oh, you and I need to talk further, Harold. Harold, you bring up an interesting talk. I want to chat with you further about that, but I also want to grab another call in the minute that we have left here. And that call is Alice in New Mexico. Alice, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank the Lord. How are you?
I am well, thank you. Nice to hear from you. What's on your mind this morning?
Okay, you were talking about essentially black-on-black crime, and you were saying how long that's been a problem. And I remember during the time of the Black Mayors, Marion Barry, Washington State, Harold Washington, until Louis Stokes, and then Ebony Magazine did a issue on black-on-black crime. So it's been a long issue for a long time. I remember C. Dolores Tucker, who is a representative of, I think, Washington, D.C., wherever, she was talking about the music of the black rappers, that it was degrading to women, and they wanted to shut her down. The person who recently I want to mention is Dr. Ben Carson, and he is saying that the black family needs to be looked at, and that's the remedy. That's going to be the remedy. And I know this resurrection
you know what,
Sunday.
Alice, I got to run here, but you and I need to talk further about this too. And I'm not just concerned about crime. I'm concerned about the entire culture. It goes deeper than crime. It goes into education. It goes into self-reliance. It goes into personal responsibility. It goes into appreciation for America. It is a cultural reset that needs to happen. Hour number duo in the can. Hour number trio coming up with Princess Diana. So whatever you do, keep it here.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
If you give a Democrat a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a Democrat how to fish, he'll steal your rod, steal your wallet, cry about having to fish the whole time, claim that the lake is on stolen land, and then probably blame Donald Trump.
Welcome, my friends, to our number trio. Both Snerdleys, a rush. Well, the rush hours during the week. This is the Saturday extravaganza. It's Saturday morning, after all. Your Saturday morning vibe. Saturday morning extravaganza, third hour, means one thing.
It's time for Radio Royalty with James Golden and America's Princess of Policy, Princess Di.
And if you're on hold, stay on hold, because Princess and I are going to take some telephone calls, too. Her goodness is in the house with us. Her Highness, Her Royal Highness, the Queen of Nessness, goodness, articulateness, cleanness, too. Clean and articulate, like Barack. Kindness, lovingness, all of that. Clean and articulate. I don't know why that came to mind, but it just did.
My goodness, James. Sir James, it's wonderful to hear your voice. The Duke of Democracy is in the house and in the host seat as usual. This is what we wait for every Saturday.
Well, thank you so much, man. I'm gonna miss Pam Bondi. I know you. Look, nobody threw bombs at Democrats at hearings like Pam Bondi did. And I know it didn't go over well with some people, but I loved every minute of it. I loved her coming back at these guys. I loved it. I wish I could. In fact, I'm thinking about going back and getting a greatest hits of Pam Bondi at hearings and hearing her go back at these Democrats. And I'm gonna miss that, even though she's gone.
Well, I think Rubio did a much better job, and I'm not going to miss her personally. So there's that.
Not at all.
Not at all. And I'm eager to see who Donald Trump appoints and who he nominates. And this will be a fight, hopefully, in confirmation, because that is the red flag you look for. Whoever is hated, who is viciously attacked by the Democrats, is the person you want in that place. And that was a red flag for me, that she really sailed through confirmation. And so I want somebody who's going to be despised and hated, because we need somebody who's going to fight for justice in the Department of Justice.
Okay. Let me just ask you this. What do you think did her in?
Well, there's all kinds of rumors. You know, there's the rumor that she supposedly leaked to Eric Swalwell that he was, you know, his file was going to be released. And he came out immediately and said, oh, no, she didn't. He defended her, which tells me it may be true.
Oh, that's just cynical.
Sorry, James. We've been around the block a few times with these people. Well, I think the big reason is, you know, as MAGA has been saying, you know, we want accountability. And even though you have to give her credit in her defense for all of the court victories that she won for Donald Trump, and that has been unstoried and unreported primarily, but in the upper courts, in the higher courts, she was behind all of the arguments that won his victories on important cases when the lower district court judges would be, you know, activist judges. So that was something she really accomplished. However, you know, MAGA needs to see accountability for all of the illegality that happened under the first Trump term and all of the treasonous activity that Democrats were responsible for. And she really did not deliver that.
Now, okay, we are there. You sent us a cut this morning from, look, this guy so badly wants to run. He was in South Carolina this week. I don't know whether you saw this or not. And Rahm Emanuel was in South Carolina at technical schools this week, and he was talking about how he wishes that if he was the president, one of his lead initiatives would be to take all the money we're spending on ICE in South Carolina and instead spend it on technical schools so that the people in technical schools can walk out with their heads high, just like his daughter has her head high at Princeton. I said to myself, what the... Like people in technical schools don't have their heads high already? And Rahm Emanuel is out trying to make noise and get noticed. You sent us a quote from Rahm. Should we play it now? Can you tell us about it, or do you want to describe it first?
Well, go ahead and play it, and then I will react.
Okay, here's Rahm Emanuel, another one of those Democrats sticking his hand up, wanting to be president in 2028.
We lost the plot. We as Democrats nationally, from Latinx to defunding the police to police organizations are all racist to bringing a set of cultural wars to our schools. We are on the losing side of those cultural wars. Full stop. You are worried about bathroom access and locker room access. Why don't you focus on classroom excellence? You have 50% of our kids not reading at grade level.
Well, they can just say we can do both.
You've proven you can't, because you've permitted a 30-year low in reading and math scores, and nobody seems to be calling the whistle on this. We lost the plot.
Why?
Because the party got unanchored. Every one of our most successful electoral presidents anchored themselves in what I call middle-class values and values that are universal, at least in this country, ascribed to. We went from acceptance to advocacy. Big difference. And I'll just take one on that I shouldn't. So here goes. I remember fighting for Title IX. The reason we are champions in women's sports in the Olympics and soccer, hockey, etc. is Title IX. Why would you undercut the premise of Title IX with the ability of trans men playing in women's sports? To me, it's insane.
Baffling.
You're undermining one of the great accomplishments we as a country, but also spearheaded by the Democratic Party, Title IX. And we're undercutting it.
Good grief.
Now, James, I do not know if you saw the piece in Axios on Sunday.
I think I know which one you're talking about. This is the one. Okay, describe it.
Well, this is the Rahm Emanuel soundbite is against that backdrop for me. Here's the title of the Axios piece. Some Democrats' 2028 strategy, a straight, white, Christian man.
Yep,
here's
saw
the
it.
First paragraph. Some top Democrats are quietly debating a fraught question whether the party's best bet for winning back the presidency in 2028 is to nominate a man, perhaps a straight, white Christian man. And if the piece goes on to describe how most of the, leading candidates for the nomination do not fit into that. But here is the interesting paragraph. Falling short twice to President Trump, both times with women on the ticket, has left some Democrat leaders, donors, keyword, and strategists deeply pessimistic about what voters will accept now. And I want to take those two things, that article about Democrats saying we need a straight white Christian man, and Rahm Emanuel saying we lost the plot, we're on the losing side of the culture wars, and put that against article you will immediately recognize from 15 years ago, Thomas
Edsall.
This was a column in the New York Times, November 27, 2011. Our boss talked about it at the time, referred to it many times since. This is an explicit strategy. The title of the article was The Future of the Obama Coalition. This was the Democrat Party's decision to form an explicitly progressive coalition, upscale whites and downscale minorities. And so that is where the Democrat chickens are coming home to roost now. They wanted this strategy. They cut out whites, they cut out religious people, and they cut out people who could have won in their party deliberately. And so now all of a sudden you've got Rahm Emanuel saying that they've lost the plot, they're on the losing side, and we need to find a straight white Christian male presidential candidate. And I find it one of the most ironic moments in American political history now, where you have a major party who took a fork in the road, and now all of a sudden they're saying, oh no, what happens now, we're not going to win again the presidency. So I thought it was an important thing to highlight. And the Axios article goes through all of the people who've been mentioned for the presidency and how they do not fit that description. You've got Jewish people, you've got Governor Pritzker, Governor Shapiro, and Rahm Emanuel himself. You've got Ro Khanna, who is of Indian descent. You've got Cory Booker, Wes Moore, who are black, Pete Buttigieg, gay. And so these are their descriptions. You've got the women, Kamala Harris, Alyssa Slotkin, AOC, Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And so none of the leading people who are talked about fit the category except possibly
Newsom.
Gavin Newsom. And I had a very smart political observer, my sister, who said he may be the one behind this Axios piece because he can declare himself, although he calls himself an Irish Catholic rebel, but he can declare himself fitting what's needed for America. But I don't think it's going to fly with the voters. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that and wanted to get...
Well, let me just say this. Newsom's got an issue, too. You know what that issue is?
He has more than one issue.
Well, I mean, in that whole description that you just said, he's got an issue, too. He may call himself straight. He may be married. He may be sexually straight, but the perception of Newsom is that he's a wuss. And that's exemplified by one of the clips of his wife that's going around this week talking about how she purposely feminized her sons and their kids and made sure that the boys played with dolls, even if they tore the dolls' heads off and all of that. I didn't even put the clip in the roster. I should have put it in because and Newsom is not, I mean, yes, straight as a word, yeah, okay, but straight in the way that people perceive him? Questionable.
He's not a manly man. Have you seen the videos?
He's not. Thank you. With the cross-legged thing, that's the one I'm looking for. The perception. And I'm not trying to be insulting by it. I'm just trying to be real. He's not regarded by manly men as a manly man.
Correct. Yes, I agree. And plus, he has so much baggage from this, being on the losing side of the culture wars with his actual policies and what he actually did with the actual state he was, quote unquote, governing. And so that he is behind the eight ball. But as far as this new view from the donors, I think that is key. They do not want to put their money behind another losing candidate. And so this is what I think that possibly that Newsom is floating his credentials as being fit for the donations. So it's not
now,
but I'm glad they realize they're in a deep hole.
Let me just say two things about this before we head off to a break. Number one, Rahm Emanuel is also challenging somebody. You know who he's challenging? You know who he's channeling?
Bill Clinton.
He ain't challenging, but I tell you what, that effing F-O-P-O-S Trump serpent head. Everything that he's saying about the Democrats and their losing the plot, serpent head has said in other words.
True.
But has been ignored. By the way, serpent head, for those of you that don't know, would be James Carville. That was Russia's affectionate term for James Carville, serpent head. And the second thing is this. Since you mentioned Newsom, we'd like to go to a break at this point with a soundbite. Cut 20, and then the music. I'm sorry, yes, cut 20. From this week on CNN, early this week, Joe Borelli on a panel.
Is it right to call Gavin Newsom stupid? Yeah, why not? I mean, Trump gets called every single name in the book all the time. Calling him stupid.
But he's the president, and I guess the question is, I mean,
he's the president who gets called a dictator, a fascist, a white supremacist, a racist. So when he calls someone who's potentially a challenger to presumably the candidate of his party stupid, and by the way, I think Gavin Newsom is stupid because he's made stupid decisions on high-speed rail, energy, sanctuary city policies. All those things indicate to me that, yes, he is stupid, and people flee his state continuously because of those policies. So I'm not concerned about Trump calling him stupid. Dyslexia is a different thing.
It's one of the biggest economic powerhouses in this country.
It's one of the world's largest.
California
is one of the largest economies in the world.
Yes, it's number 3 in the world. Great. The population is shrinking, mostly because of the population of California. The population of California is so much larger than any of the other states. It's two and a third of New York, right? However, more people have left the state of California because of decisions made by not just Gavin Newsom, but the California legislature as well. More people have left that state and fled because of those decisions. It's fair and a good criticism for Republicans to be pointing out that those policies are stupid.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And Princess Diana is in the house with us, a NATO princess.
Well, I just want to, I'm sure you have seen this and talked about it. The speech that Trump gave to the nation on April 1st was a dramatic change in orientation for NATO. And I think NATO is in a world of hurt, as are the Democrats. And as you noticed, he thanked our allies in the Middle East, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain. They've been great, and we will not let them get hurt or fail in any way, shape, or form. And then he took on the countries that were not with us. He talked about the Strait of Hormuz and how the U.S. imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait. We don't need it, and the countries of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. And so they must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They could do it easily. We will be helpful, but they should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately need, so that to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refuse to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves. I have a suggestion, said Trump. Number 1, buy oil from the United States. We have plenty. And number 2, build up some delayed courage. You should have done it before, should have done it with us as we asked. Go to the Strait and just take it, protect it, use it for yourselves. The hard part is done. Iran has been essentially decimated. It should be easy. He basically said, we have a change of strategy. The United States was going to, that was the original plan. He had created insurance availability. He was going to have escorts from our military, and that strategy has been changed because of their duplicity. And the UK Prime Minister had a Zoom meeting in response and gathered 35 nations by Zoom. What are they going to do now? And they decided to have more meetings.
Yeah, I think I saw it was 41 countries that they have these meetings with. They're trying to figure out now what they need to do. We're going to continue this because I think the day of NATO is over. I think it's overdue. I think there's going to be a lot of squawking here, but I think it's over. Princess Di is here. Don't go away, folks.
The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The James Golden Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Princess Di is with us. Your Highness, before we left, we talked about NATO and all this UK summit. They are rationing oil and gas in Europe right now. They're down to rationing because of Hormuz. They still won't act. And instead, one of the things they're doing is urging the UN to get involved. The UN. The UN.
That's appropriate. That is just as effective as they are. And I think what Trump is doing, basically, this is a strategy that, of course, is America first in what matters to us, but he's also making clear to the world, including NATO, exactly what the situation has been. They have been welfare recipients of the United States largesse and protection, and they have done nothing but snipe at us and their superior attitude that they have been saying how, criticizing the United States for every single thing. This was even before Trump. And they have this attitude toward the great beneficence of the United States taxpayer that is just entitlement. And so now, all of a sudden, the clarity of the situation has happened to them that, wait a minute, without the protection of the United States, without the guidance in this particular conflict of the United States, they are in a world of hurt for their own population, which they never cared about because they could afford to do liberal policies, and they would always be helped and backstopped by the United States military protection. Now, if that protection is removed, which I think you're right, I think that NATO, it will be no more. It may be in name only. They all of a sudden have to spend money on a military. It is remarkable. If you look at of all history, world history, countries have militaries. They always have. But these countries have gotten away with not having strong militaries at all because they relied on us. Oh, well, here we have a new day, and it is good for all of us.
Okay, I love it. Now, I just want to clear a few things. Let's see. I'm debating sound bites or phones. People have been waiting on the phone. So, Princess Diana, you and I are going to revisit the phones. If you're on hold, thank you for waiting. And you're going to be speaking with Princess Di. And let's start, let's start in Astoria, Queens with E. Frank, who has been holding for close to an hour. And E. Frank, thank you. How are you?
Yes, how are you, Snerdley, James Golden? I just want to say Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s 58th anniversary is tomorrow, I assume?
No, it's today.
Today.
It was April 4th, 1968, that Dr. King was assassinated at the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee. It was a Thursday night.
All right. I called because I needed to tell you that I'm fed up with this war in Iraq, because I know what these service people go through. I was a ROTC cadet at one time. I was never a member of the United States Air Force Academy. I never enlisted. I had to register towards selective service back when I was 18. I never got induction because I left the ROTC program. And it's rigorous, the training. And with these servicemen putting their lives on the line, being shot over the air, I even saw, recently an F-22 Raptor. I mean, how do these fighter pilots face these Iraqi missile attacks, or whatever Donald Trump says is left of them? And I say to myself, now Donald Trump says we might not need ground troops, but I ask Lady Di and yourself, do you think that Donald Trump is going to extend this war, or he's going to just say that he's finished?
Well, I think one of the great things about Donald Trump, first of all, he is a different president than we've ever had before. And so a lot of people, I think, are stuck in the past of what happened in previous conflicts. Donald Trump is not like Obama or even Bush. And so, you have to remember that our troops are voluntary, and they know when they sign up that there is the possibility of being put in harm's way, and we must pray for them. Do I think that Trump will cut bait? I do not know, and neither does the enemy. And I think that's one of the advantages of Donald Trump when it comes to strategy. Nobody knows. He is always surprising and flexible. And so I think, frankly, we are in good hands. I think the right thing will happen. And I see what he has amassed, the power he has amassed. He has every option being given to him by the military at his beck and call. We will win.
I think there's just something else, too. I mean, they're making a big deal. Hegseth is making changes at the Pentagon. And whatever's happening over in there, people are pointing to chaos and chaos and chaos. One thing about Hegseth, and I've not agreed with everything that Pete Hegseth has done since he's been at the Pentagon, but I don't have to. I mean, he's the guy running the show over there. One thing about Pete Hegseth, he's really clear about wanting to win, and lethality, as he calls it. And he's really clear about his vision. So whatever is happening over there, it's happening because they're not happy with some aspect of what is taking place already. What do you think about that, Princess Diana?
Well, I know that the general that he fired, the people who came to his defense and were yelling and screaming about it are on the left. And so the changes he has been making have been really upsetting what I consider representatives of the deep state. And you've got these retired generals who are coming out in op-eds and whatever, criticizing Hegseth. They hate his focus on lethality. There was the General McChrystal who came out in an interview and basically poo-pooed the whole idea of having an emphasis on lethality. And he's the guy who came up with the idea of courageous restraint in the military when he was a general, an active general. Courageous restraint, that put our troops in harm's way much more. They could not fight back. And so I think a lot of the reason that the generals are upset and their defenders on the left is because we now have an American military that is being unleashed in its full strength, and they want it to be controlled by the left.
Wow. Let's go to Virginia and check in with Joe. Joe, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, James. I'm first time calling and been only listening to you for about 3 or 4 months. But I want to say that caller earlier saying that we weren't winning the Iran war. I want to say this. In 1979, I was stationed in Europe with the Navy, and everybody I was with, when they took the embassy, wanted to turn Iran into a parking lot. We could have done it then. We should have done it then. We wouldn't have all this problem. I lay all the problems at the feet of Jimmy Carter. Now, you talk about NATO being stationed in Europe as part of NATO. We used to say the acronym NATO was no action, talk only. And right now they are really putting that up.
Wow. No action, talk only. That's NATO.
Yes. That was NATO. So, we need to pull out of NATO. We don't need it. They can defend themselves. Poland, if Russia were to attack Poland, Poland would kick their butt. Okay? So they don't need us, and we don't need them.
Wow. I think you may get I think things may happen in that respect. Princess Diana, do you think that the rift is going to heal, or, is this a permanent fissure?
Permanent fissure, and it's, a good thing, in my opinion. As Trump said in his speech, for years, everyone has said that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons, but in the end, those are just words if you're not willing to take action when the time comes. And so we have a man of action in the presidency, and we should thank the Lord, especially on this Easter weekend, that we are under protection.
Rich in Connecticut, you're on with Princess Diana, on with Snerdley.
Yes, good morning, Mr. James. So key question is, how frequently has the CIA and now the national security agencies correctly predicted when a country would go nuclear? And the CIA has gotten it correct only about 1/3 of the time. They were wrong with the Soviet Union. They predicted 53. It was 1949. They were wrong with China. They were wrong with India in 1971. They were taken by surprise. They were taken by surprise with Pakistan. So the idea that there's a question of imminency and that the CIA is right and President Trump should be more restrained is ridiculous, given that the only times that the CIA has gotten it right was judging when our own allies went nuclear, Britain and France.
Princess Diana, want to comment on that one?
Well, the CIA did not even anticipate the fall of the Soviet Union.
Fall of the Soviet Union, that's right.
Everything. And it was obvious that Iran was pursuing the North Korean strategy, which was to negotiate, meanwhile create the nuclear weapons. And that is what caused the worldwide problem before Trump of North Korea threatening the world. And Iran was pursuing that same exact strategy, and it would have worked if it were not for President Trump.
Chris calling in from the Catskills in New York. Chris, good morning. How are you, Chris?
Good morning, James. I just wanted to compliment you on the great interview with Peter Michalos, and there was some issues with healthcare I wanted to bring up, maybe with Princess Diane on the phone. You're discussing the war. You
can transition to healthcare. It's okay. Phone call. What about healthcare?
Well, there's some great topics that Dr. Michalos would be interested in talking about maybe on your next show. Food and Drug Administration Drug Act of 1974 allows pharmaceutical drug companies to hide certain side effects, intermediate to long term. There's not a lot of research done in these areas. I myself have 4 different autoimmune diseases that were caused from my mother passing on a genetic predisposition. Her intestinal flora was permanently damaged from taking broad-spectrum sulfur-based antibiotics to treat cystic acne in the 1950s. There's not enough research documented in Western-based United States medicine on how certain medications like prescription broad-spectrum antibiotics can cause lifetime side effects that can be passed on to offspring. You know, obviously the lifespan, average lifespan has been extended through broad-spectrum antibiotics invention, but there's always the other side, and side effects aren't adequately investigated and documented in the United States, and it leads to a lot of autoimmune diseases and other health issues.
Well, I would love to hear what the doctor has to say about that. I want to get straight on one of the things that I've asked the doctor to come back next week is, despite all the hype about Obamacare fixing America and all the other hype behind that, our healthcare system is broken, and it's not getting better, it's getting worse. It is broken, and we need a repair on this. Not a Band-Aid. We need structural repairs to America's healthcare delivery system. Princess Di, you want to comment on that?
Well, another thing to maybe ask him about, I saw this week that Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert Kennedy Jr., is a focus on microplastics now.
I saw that too.
Interested in, because that seemed to me before that, I thought it was a pretty fringe concept that this was anything that we really had to be concerned about. But I now want to hear what the secretary has to say and what the investigation leads to, and you may want to ask your healthcare person about it.
Well, I have never thought that microplastics was fringe. In fact, it is so real. But you know, I mean, have I given up all the water in plastic bottles? No. But the microplastics are everywhere, and and they are being found in the human system.
Yes.
Everywhere. So it's like, yeah, I'm glad they're focused on this. This is a really good thing. Maybe we have to go back to bottles. Wouldn't that be amazing? More old school technology. Princess Diana, before you leave, let me see, I'm just looking at the clock to see if I have time to do this. Okay, quickly. Cut 4. This is a person seeking health care. She's a doctor. She was at JFK. She's a doctor at Kaiser Permanente, the $9 billion no-profit that pays its people so much money. This was her at JFK Airport.
Some a question. Let's see what they say. Excuse me? I just want to say thank you guys for being here.
Talking to ICE agents.
Because I know when I wake up in the morning, I'll never be racist pigs like you. No matter how bad I am, I'll never be like you. So, good job. I hope your moms are real proud of you. They were cute, weren't they? I hope they continue to be best, like Melania be best, because they are being the best at being the worst. So, to them.
When she got off at Portland, she made another video, which I don't even care to play, which was a mock apology. She's sorry for the pigs because the pigs are better than the ICE agents there. This is a doctor at Kaiser Permanente. They said they're aware of the video. What do you think?
Well, she should diagnose herself with TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. You know, it's been interesting because these ICE agents that have had new public exposure in these airports, thanks to the Democrats, strategy of not funding the TSA, that has exposed the public to these wonderful public servants and how great they are. They're handing out water in plastic bottles. They are helping people with their travel plans. They are changing the long lines to short lines. And so the public is seeing not what the Democrat media has been portraying ICE as, but as wonderful members of the community. And I think that has been a fantastic result of the Democrats' evil plot.
Yep. Princess Di, we're going to let you go here, and thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to catching up with you, possible next week. Oh, it's always a treat, Your Highness, to have you with us. And I'm so glad you take phone calls with us now, too, because it's so much fun. I'm going to have some sound bites for you next week, too. Some of the ones that I couldn't get to, I hope. I've got so much stuff. I got so many sound bites, I can't get to them all. But thank you, Princess Di. We appreciate it.
Thank you, the Duke of Democracy, Sir James, as always.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The James Golden Show. You can hear The James Golden Show Saturday mornings at 7. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
Let Century Management Solutions get you to your next medical appointment. They specialize in non-emergency medical transportation, connecting patients to care, safety, reliability, and on time. Their advanced technology platform seamlessly coordinates patients, healthcare providers, insurers, and transportation partners all in one powerful network. With over 200 trusted transportation providers, they deliver scalable solutions backed by real-time tracking and complete transparency. Go to SENTRYMS.com.